I want to show here that I wasn't able to do because of the screen. It was right down here, this little window right down here. You can make it, zoom it to be bigger or smaller. You know, this way you can really see your edits a lot easier. Sometimes you want to zoom in really close and so forth. So that's one little tool that I couldn't really show you before. So that's very important. The other aspect is on here, there is another timeline I want to show you, which is when you click timeline from window, there is frame by frame animation. And so frame by frame animation lets you do a animated GIF. So if I wanted to make an animated GIF, you could create it, and then you would export it as a video, because you cannot have an animated GIF and a video on at the same time in Photoshop. So if you did a frame by frame animation, you would do it in Photoshop in a separate document, and then you would render it out as a video. And when you render it out as a video, like for instance, I'll do a little demo on an animated GIF. So let me just merge these pictures so I can show you. Let me do this. I'll flatten this, flatten image. And so I'll create a frame by frame. So it looks very different. The keyframe looks very different than the video, of course. Let me get this to be up. No, it doesn't let me change the scale. Okay. All right. So there. So yeah, it's a little tricky. Let me bring it up here. Hold on. This will be easier. So so now, if I wanted to make this an animated GIF, I'll show you something. This is what we call frame by frame animation to be able to do. And so what you do is, so all the parameters for editing frame by frame is here, but also here. So this one is going to duplicate that one. And so I could now go to a filter. Let's do something, stylize, let's see, twirl, pixelate, distort. Let's do a twirl. This will be easy enough. So I'm going to zoom out. Well, that's not zooming out. Cancel that. Let's do distort, twirl. Let's zoom out so you can see this. There we go. So there's that twirl, right? So this is just like that. So if I wanted 0, that is the way it is. And let's go back to that. Where are you? Distort, twirl. So if I wanted to do that, I would do 45 like that. And it shows you the design right here. And then I would say, okay. But the problem is, it changes at both of them. So you have to duplicate this. And you turn off the one that you don't want to change. And now you can come up here and I could say twirl, right? Then you duplicate this again, turn the one off, but be sure that you add another one of these. So this would be on for the first one. Then when I come to here, I turn this on. You see, only one is on. Then I come here to this one, and I turn the third one on. Okay, so now I'm going to add another one. And then I duplicate this and turn this off, keep that on, and literally Control-Alt-Shift will keep increasing it. So now I have this one, which is like that. We'll go from the beginning, turn this off. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So let's get this one on 4. So then again, 1, 2, 3, didn't really change, so I'll delete that. And then 4. 1, 2, 3, and so forth and so forth. And then when I play it back, so let's do that again. We'll add another one. And again, duplicate this. It's actually better just to build all your layers like we did in the video where I say just get them organized than to start this. So I'll turn this off, back to filter again, twirl, more twirl. And so you see it affects everything because I just created a new one. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to not do these frames. Duplicate this again. And then turn that off. Go back to filter to turn this on. And so now you see it's incrementally. So this is what we call frame by frame. So you could actually, you know, like if you drew a flower, you draw a little bit of a flower, make a layer, duplicate it, draw it, add on to it, or erase it. Often, sometimes frame by frame is erasing. You get it all drawn beautifully, and then you erase it. I'm going to show you a video and things of that nature. So again, on the animated GIF, I would rebuild the animated GIF. So I'll make this, I want to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 frames. 4, 5, 6. So start with 1, that turns on. Go 2, that is good. 3 is right here. 3, 4 is up there. 5, turn on. 6, 6. So again, 1, 2, 3. 3 is really not, is pretty much the same. So I can delete that. And I could delete this one. So 1, see this layer, 2, layer, 3, layer, 4, layer, 5, layer. And then on here, you can have a delay. So if I just play this, you see, and you can do a reverse. So you can actually pick this up, copy frames, then select 1 and paste frames, and it will say after selection, and then you can say reverse it. And then that gives you a loop. Loops are great for animated GIFs. So you see, this would make my sister laugh, right? And then I could make it into a ball and the ball takes off, right? I teach animation, so you can imagine how crazy ideas we can all have. But that would be the point, is it's literally frame by frame, you check layer on, layer off, duplicate, delete, and so forth. But all of these things, so then if I wanted to bring this into my video, then I would come up here, export, render video, right here, render video. And in render video, now there's no alpha here. So this would be MPEG 4. You would want to have a MPEG 4 you can import, definitely. Now there's no transparency, otherwise I would get a QuickTime video like this right here. I would, if I wanted the background to be transparent, then I would go to QuickTime, and then here, the alpha channel, I would say straight unmatted, and it would bring the video in with the background being transparent. And then that could be laid on top of, you know, photograph or video, whatever you may have. So that's how you actually export it. If you're going, you know, otherwise an animated GIF, you would do it from here. You would have export to web, and you would turn it to be an animated GIF. And the animated GIF would be a web document that you could upload to a social media site, a Facebook site, whatever it may be. It would be an animated GIF and it would play. You would need to have a color in the background because, I mean, but GIFs can have one color transparency. So if it was floating on something like a web page and you had a circle of an animation, you would see the background in that. And again, you know, animated GIFs are fun to do. And so I'm going to show you a video now. And so now you see these are the colors. So you can change the color scheme and really make it very polarized in the colorway. So this was 32. And what this does is it helps the load time, helps you to be able to load, like we talked about before. So that's the export. Now, in the other video here, where you want to import a video, and then I want to show you some things about when we talk about tweening, is what you do is if I wanted to import video, I would create a blank layer, simply blank, and now this blank layer is right up here to 26. Let me find out where it is here. There it is. Here's layer 26. And on this layer right here, if you mouse down, add media, that would accept an MPEG-4 or an MOV. Those are usually the ones that will do. And then it will, you will have that on a layer, and you can decide, do I want it in the foreground, the middle ground, or the background? So that's how you import video into Photoshop, as well as another audio track. Like if you had sound effects, like people walking or people clapping, you could import a sound effect and use that way, because under the audio layer down here, you can only import one audio. So the only way you could import more audio is the way I just showed you, with the blank layer, add media with the mouse down and so forth. Because media is audio and media is video. So what I want to do is show you this other video, and this is why it's so fun. And I will sort of interrupt when I will say we cannot do this in Photoshop. But pretty much there's a lot you can do.
Creativity is about using our imagination to make new and fresh ideas. It's like hunting a silk of hot and watching it go. Or like driving to a new place you have never been before. Or maybe it's like the sky making rainbows on a rainy day. Oh, I know. It's like building a rocket ship to fly to Jupiter. Creativity helps build new and exciting cities. Over the past 15 years, we have built the tallest skyscrapers, the coolest inventions, and the weirdest architecture. Creativity helps us solve problems by thinking outside the box, creating new and better solutions to solve existing problems. It makes us sing, dance, fly, jump, create. It's like being a bird in the sky. It makes you soar to greater heights and experience bigger and more exciting adventures, making the impossible possible. So don't be afraid to be creative. How else would life be rich and colorful? Open up the little cocoon of yours and let your imagination take flight. Think creative, be creative.
So on this video, I'll tell you the things that you cannot do in Photoshop. You cannot make three-dimensional models, right? But this could be a video clip coming from a three-dimensional program with an alpha so that you can see your background. But you can't create this. Everything else pretty much is created quite a bit. Except for maybe these geometric shapes, you would probably do them in Illustrator, right? And so forth. And the timing and the tweening, such as rotate, scale, and so forth. So the trick in doing this is one that's easy to do for you. I did that a little bit with that one photograph that we were down at the bottom and pulled it up to the top. That would be this one. Let me turn down the sound here. Okay. So in other words, let me see if this gets bigger. Okay. So on here, let me just stop this. The trick in doing this is you have one layer that's the background, the layer in front of it, which is above the top, is the drawing, and then you have another layer that's a duplicate of the background. And all you're doing is pulling it up like we do this, right? To show a face. That's all you're doing. So you've got a background that is solid like this, just like that. And now you have a layer on top of the drawing, and you're literally, the position change, covered first and then lift it and reveal it. Now the reason why it's not a complete straight line, because they made a jagged reveal. So it looks like the buildings are going up like this. They could have gone like this, but because the bottom line of that top layer, which is the texture of the paper, is like irregular. So it looks like it's revealing like that. So we call that reveal. And on things like this, you notice how the trees rotate, right? Well, when we go back to Photoshop, I'll try to see if that tool will come up, is if I rotate my hand, it rotates like that. But if I have the rotation on my elbow, it rotates on a different corner. So that's why, to me, that's a very important tool in Photoshop, and hopefully the new version hasn't forgotten about that tool. But everything else you can see is a rotate spin. Now something like this is stop frame animation. So they shot video with one color background, right? Could be black, probably, because this is a medium value, and then they brought it in and they made the alpha channel. And so this is basically stop frame animation right here. And stop frame animation is putting up your video camera. And what I like to say is just shoot the camera. You can edit it in Photoshop and in Premiere to take out the frames to make it look like it's stop frame. Stop frame only looks stop frame because it jumps so fast in time. And the same thing with the box here. Where was that box they had? Right back here. This is stop frame. Picture one. Oh, let's go back. So it was, here it comes, all right, so that reveals it again. So that was picture one, picture two. All of these are layers, and all of them are in separate layers, and you just rotate and spin them out. Picture three, picture four of the box. Box is still now. Everything else is just moving. Now, something like this, which is the animated face on this smiley face, right? Like that one right there. That was an animated GIF exported as a video. So it was standing still, but all they did was animate smiley face with teeth, no teeth, or whatever it may be. And then they exported it, and then they could rotate it. And that's how you can be able to rotate objects as it is in Photoshop here. when you utilize this one here. And the other aspect about the animated GIF is that you can't go back and forth between video and animation. Once you're in animation, the frame by frame animation, if you jump to it, it often loses all of your keyframing that you did. So you have to really decide, should this be an animated GIF or should this be a video? And right here would toggle the video back to being video. So this again is how it will look when you begin. You would take your web design file and drag and drop the layers into your video file and scale them and position them to be what you want it to be. You have to be careful about scaling, like always. So you might want to bring the original source in, because when you scale down and you close out your file, I don't believe the resolution stays the same, even though it came in big. So that's why you want to be sure to save all of your assets on that. And so what I want to show you here is, let me just turn these off. I don't know where, there, you see this totally messed up with the timeline. Hold on. Where are you, timeline? Yeah, timeline is already started. And I'm going to go back, as you'll see. And you see it literally, let's see, will it come back? I really, definitely, I'm always fascinated to see how much, look at that. That's amazing that it's not even there. Welcome. I mean, this is all because of the new version. They really have a little bit things messed up. And as you can see, that really super messes it up. So I could go back to revert and let's see here. And I have my layer. Yeah, this is a layer I have. So I didn't save that one, which is good. So I will merge this, merge visible. And I want to do a Control-T. And the Control-T is not letting me do a rotate. So I'm going to show you on there. So here is the ability. So when you rotate this, you can see how this changes, right? So if I'm in my timeline, let's go to a timeline this time, and let's make it be video. And ask me any questions if you have on this. So I'm going to just basically scale this down so that we can see the rotation happening. And remember what I said to you about the position. Oh, I got to say yes, accept this. Double click. And you see right down here is my position. I'll do this again for the position. So if I wanted this to be off the stage, keeping shift key, I would click the position, I would lock it, advance it, then move it to here. It will automatically make the keyframe for you, then advance the timer again, and then move it out. And the guides help you to keep it aligned. And then it will make it again. So that when I play this, but you notice it didn't pause, right? So you can actually do a keyframe like this. So I would go back and I would advance it, bring it to the center, get that align, bring it to the center. It would make the keyframe. Then I would advance it, and then notice how it goes off. I would make another keyframe. That creates a hold. And then I advance it. And you can advance it all the way, push it all the way to the end, and then move this again. So now when I play it, it's going to hold it and let it go. Now that's obviously too fast. So you can actually stretch this out, manually move these, so that this way I have a longer shot like this. And now watch when you play it, it comes in slower, which is better, makes the hold, then takes it away. And again, the tools up here, if I wanted to do a fade, you just add. So again, it would look like this. And if you didn't, you could shorten this so that it doesn't hold too long. You can actually edit all of this to be shorter. So now if I wanted to make this rotate, and if you have any questions, just ask me. I'm going to show you now a little bit more advanced. So you notice the position, says position here. Watch what happens. Oh, let me get this out here. Watch what happens when I do rotate. And zoom is a scale. So you want, if I leave it as it is, you see it zooms automatically for me. And it does a slight rotate, right? So if I do that again, rotate and zoom, and I take this off, and then I deselect, notice it changes the word transform. So it was once position, now it's transform. So what I can do is I can just start and work with my own style. So I'll start like this, and now what I want to do is Control T, and what should happen is I should be able to rotate at a different position, and I'm not able to move that because I would change the axis over here. And that's where my problem is. The transform tool is not giving me the center axis. So that is problematic. So I'm just gonna show you what a bug looks like, but that's how you would do it. So right now I can't rotate it on this angle. I can only do dead center rotations until I can fix this transform tool. So then again, I can say quit. But that would be the same way with the zoom in. So if I wanted to scale and make this larger, I can bring this up. And you see, if I had it in the center, it would zoom from the center. And then when I accept it, just double click it. And there you have the ability to zoom. So I can move that all the way to the end there, and that would slow it down. So the longer you have your sprite stretched out, the longer it takes. So what I want to do is I want to show you, I'm going to launch Illustrator while I show you this, because Illustrator, you can't work in Illustrator unless you have that tool. A lot of people don't always do, I mean, I would want it, I always want it. So I'm trying to figure out why they forgot to include this. So I'm just going to create, so when you have a trouble issue right now, like I have a problem with this rotate, the thing about troubleshooting is sometimes there's some other problem going on that you don't see. So it's very good to just open up a blank document and do the one task that the tool should do. Then you know, is it the software, is it me, or is it my file? So I'm going to just pick a traditional letter size. I'm going to make a box. Make a box like this. I'll fill it with the foreground. So now I have it. I don't need a timeline. I did it not on, I need to make it on a layer. That would help. You always see in Illustrator, it makes layers for you all the time, but in Photoshop, you have to always give a heads up and make sure that you have a new layer. So now I have my box, and if I do Control T, I am looking for the centering. So let's just go to Edit Transform. See, Free Transform is, and notice that you say rotate. To do a full circle in that in the timeline, you do 180 at a time. You cannot do 360. You have to do keyframe 180, and then the last keyframe another 180, and then that will give you a full circle to go around. So you see, when I want to rotate this, Control T, and you see when you hover over, you get that ability. What's missing is this center dot. So let me show you in Illustrator where that center dot is and why it's so important. I'm just making a quick document here. It's sometimes a little slow when I'm screen sharing. So I'll just make a rectangle. And so you see I can rotate around this, but if I move this, and this is where it gets a little trickier, on here, the rotate tool, you can move this object to be somewhere else. So let's do the rotate again. Let me come out of that. And I'll click the highlight this, click the rotate, and you see I dropped it up here. Now watch when I rotate it. It rotates around that corner. That is critical in a rotate. You don't always want everything rotating around the center. So they've forgotten that tool in Photoshop. It should be there because you often need to rotate. Imagine like here, if I was in the tran here and I needed to rotate around this axis, it would be rotate. I would have to move it and it would be really not a fun situation. So they've really missed doing that, and I have to, look at the preferences to see if it's there or not, and that would be the first thing to look. And remember where your preferences are. Right up here. On a PC, it's under Edit Preferences. On a Mac, it's usually under File Preferences. So let's just take a peek. Well, let me escape out of this first. And let's see here. I'll just do Interface. So this is where you can change the background in Photoshop. And, certain things, highlight. So what I'm looking for is like the rotate tool. Now, by default, it should automatically be there. Here we go. Show reference point. Aha. That kind of sounds like it, right? And to me, if that is what it does, they should have that on by default. And beginners would never know that, and it would drive you crazy. So let's see if it does. Yes, there it is. Now, trust me, this is, I would know to go look for there and go, but for me as an educator, that upsets me that by default, they do not have that toggled on. So now watch what happens. So now I can move this and move it right up here. You can snap it right to that corner and now I can move it around here. It is literally impossible to make that happen when it's rotating around the center. So that's why when I was showing you that transform, it's like, where is the key? Where is this? So that was under preferences. So again, sometimes it is you, same with me, sometimes it's me. And you know, often I kind of get confused because I'm thinking like an illustrator when I'm in Photoshop, or I'm an illustrator thinking like Photoshop. And so you have to kind of ground yourself going, wait a minute, where am I? And so this was under preferences. So preferences are really important, especially when you have, like when you want to show your grid. So view, show, grid. So if you want to line things up, like you have something in a very organized design, you can actually make your preferences be to the size that you want it to be. So under grid here, you see inches. I could say only 1 division, and it would give me that. And if you notice, you see this is not symmetrical. So that would give me a heads up that this is absolutely an inch here. And because it's 8.5, so it's probably 8, and this is a 1/2 inch, I would have to make it to be 9, and that of course would be our canvas. Not 9, yeah, making it 9. And there's your grid to make it there. And so you can have some of the other things that are important under preferences. Number 1, your cursor. Sometimes your cursor is not showing what you want it to be. You want it to be the brush. You don't want it to be this one. So it's important to know which toggle you have. The other thing about brushes, to give you a heads up, is that, and maybe they fixed this, I don't know, but often if you have the caps lock on, if you're working in Photoshop and on the keyboard, you have the caps lock on, you often do not see your brush. And it drives you crazy. Like, why can't I see my brush? And you'll go to preferences and you'll see that it's on. So just remember that caps lock, you don't want to have on while you're working in Photoshop. Units are another one where if you want points versus pixels or inches, you know, depending on if you're working on in a screen project, web project, or print project. Performance, I never go there. Export, never really do that. Export media. These are what we call metadata information, and so that might pop up. Often Bridge is part of where I like to put my metadata because they've got all the windows there for you to put your metadata. And if anybody would like me to launch Bridge next week or Thursday, I will do that, where you can put your metadata onto your document. What that means is that whenever you export your file, all the metadata will be on there, and you can actually Google search it. And you can see who's utilizing your image over and over again if they have not changed the file name. But sometimes it all actually can be embedded even if the file name has been changed. So you can do a copyright and pick things up. I mean, people do water